Hi, good afternoon. I'm Thomas Curran, working for Deutsche Börse. Some of you have heard about Deutsche Börse, not totally unrelated to the previous talk. It's a main part of the financial services industry, of course, not only in Germany, but also in the United States, in the UK, Singapore, Luxembourg, etc., to name a few. Today, we invite you to a workshop. The idea is that we're not going to stand here talking all the time, but instead trying to get some feedback about a number of topics. So the first one is, if we imagined ourselves setting up a gold mine and going to the Yukon in Canada, I brought you today the guy with the axe and the guy with the successful mining career behind him. So we have, and of course myself, and I probably just think about things like that. We have, first of all, I'm going to introduce Carlo. He is the founder of 360T. 360T was, as most of you know, acquired by Deutsche Börse in a fairly prominent fintech transaction very recently. And I have Ankur Kamalia, who's the fellow with the axe, who's looking for investments and investing quite a lot in the industry already. We have an existing portfolio, and both of these people will introduce themselves, and then I will have a few ideas about questions and topics we can talk about, and hope we can engage with you on those things. So, Carlo.
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much. I think I sit down here, to be honest. I don't know who knows about 360T, who knows about the story of 360T, hands up. Oh, that's great. So I'm still alive, even after 9 months in a big German corporate. I think the story in a nutshell was, as three guys on a laptop, we founded the company 16 years ago. When the expression fintech didn't exist yet. I think we are confronted to be a fintech only over the last 5 to 6 years. Before that, we just tried to build a trading platform. So we did that from Frankfurt and expanded into the world. And by last year, we were the third largest FX trading platform globally. And in an acquisition, were bought by Deutsche Börse. I mean, Deutsche Börse, I think, when you think about NOAH conference, you might not have the first thought on Deutsche Börse. But I think what you will hear and see today is that Deutsche Börse is, I think, one of the key players in the value chain for fintech companies in different shapes or form. And maybe that hasn't risen so far, but I think today we will do a first start in order to give you an overview of what we do here. And it's quite a bit, and I have to admit, not is it a very interesting company that most people don't think so much about necessarily, but it also provides young companies, tons of opportunities along the value chain between a really early startup and a matured company going forward. From my end, I can also say they're obviously an exit option. They bought us last year in a very professional process. I'm still there. This company is very much in motion. We have a new CEO for a year. There's a lot going on in any shape or form. Very dynamic environment, and it's on top of it fun to work there. So my story is the story of a guy that founded a fintech company in Germany, made it global, and sold it as the biggest fintech transaction ever in Germany. I think the biggest last year in entire Europe. And now I'm part of that group, and I think I'll leave it more to Ankur from now.
Impossibly difficult story to actually follow and introduce myself on the back of, but so I'm the nomenclature Indian, I guess, on the stage at the moment, and with Deutsche Börse. I've been with the organization circa about 6 months now, so relatively new, very new to Germany, but loving every single day of it, being over here in the country. Quick background, and then I'll talk a little bit about the ecosystem. I joined Deutsche Börse 6 months ago with the mandate to essentially manage our portfolio of venture investments across the group. Now, Deutsche Börse doesn't naturally come across as an investment firm. We are not an investment firm. We have done a number of strategic investments over the course of the last 5 to 10 years. Thomas mentioned that up front. We already have an existing portfolio, which has been a little bit more concentrated, perhaps towards core market infrastructure. What do I mean by that? Predominantly other exchanges. So for example, we own a stake in Bombay Stock Exchange, TIFEX, BATS Global Markets, but also in much younger companies, such as Digital Vega, which was an FX option or is an FX options platform, as well as Digital Asset Holdings, which we invested in earlier this year, and which is a distributed ledger company. Now, why is all of this relevant? It is relevant because we've changed our ecosystem, obviously, going forward. The 3 gentlemen that you actually see on the stage over here, by coincidence, also happen to be part of our investment committee and my investment committee at DB1 Ventures. DB1 Ventures is our corporate venture arm. The guy with the axe, hopefully not with the axe, but a lot more than just the axe, and that's the value proposition at the end of the day for Deutsche Börse. It's not just capital that we are actually bringing to the table over here. It is actually connectivity. It's the ability to actually scale. It's the platform. And when we sort of briefly sort of look at what we have over here from a ventures ecosystem perspective, and I'll touch on that for a second because I think it's important and relevant to touch a point that Carlo was making. Yes, Deutsche Börse in many ways is the incumbent fintech in Europe. We did introduce electronic trading. The bulk of our revenues come from electronic revenue generation. We are a big data company. We are a big index company. But we are very active in the venture ecosystem. Classic example is our Fintech Hub, which we opened in Frankfurt, which went live a few months ago. Start to finish, that project was 2 months. Who says that incumbents can't move quickly? When you actually have the right idea, we can move quickly. Digital Asset Holdings, start to finish our investment cycle was 1.5 months on that investment decision. Incumbents can move quickly when you have clarity of vision. Fintech Hub is one such sort of vision that we have, which we've opened in Frankfurt. We'll probably expand it further. Within the center of the ecosystem, the guy with the axe, hopefully not just the axe, is capital. Obviously, we provide capital and it's strategic capital, which means that we actually partner with our portfolio companies. They're not just investee companies, they are partners for us as we look to expand our footprint and our knowledge base and our technology stack to actually better govern or better serve our own clients. And that's DB1 Ventures. And what envelopes it is the Deutsche Börse Venture Network. An incredible story. It's barely been a year since Deutsche Börse Venture Network went live. We've got 155 investors. I think cumulatively they manage over 1 trillion of assets, 1.3 trillion if I'm not mistaken. We've got over 75 companies, actually 81 I think to be precise, corporates already on that sort of network as well. And it's essentially a meeting place. It's a meeting place at the moment, very German-centric. At the moment, late-stage, high-growth companies, average CAGR is about 200%. But that will expand their business model into the broader sort of ecosystem across the life cycle of a company. So to expand it to actually encourage early-stage companies to come out of the platform, provide a marketplace for facilitation of capital and capital formation. Bottom line is, not as innovative as Carlo, but hoping to actually invest, partner with companies who essentially achieve similar results. And I'll pass it on back to Thomas.
So my role in this picture up here is, well, first of all, innovation is a broader term that involves a number of different efforts in the Deutsche Börse Group. One, of course, has to do with modernizing the software development and the product development platform. Part of that, or related to that, is the product development labs. That's, by the way, now soon to be announced, will open its doors to third-party partners and co-development companies that wish to work within the Deutsche Börse Group platform. Not everything, but selected pieces of that. So the labs see it as a place to collaborate and work together on product integration. We've been, of course, doing quite a lot of digital business already in the past, but we also have now established a digital business group that will help, first of all, some of our products go to market via the internet. That's been slightly challenging in the past, but we're obviously with cloud technology and a number of other new mobile, etc. technologies able to extend the reach of a lot of the products we have today, and are building more around that technology platform. So basically, I'm the technology guy here, and that's my background, software and software development. So I think what we should do is, before we, first of all, go into more of a collaborative Q&A type of workshop session, how many people here are from banking, just so we get an idea of what we're dealing with? So maybe half of the group. And technology, product development, so okay, a few.
Who's a startup? Who's an entrepreneur here and is doing something? None?
One.
Who is a potential investor? Okay. So what are the rest? What's the rest doing? Who's an advisor in any shape or form? Legal? Okay, most of the people. Okay, so it's just we don't address the wrong points to the right people. No, I think it's yeah.
I think we should, we have someone on the floor with a microphone, and I think we should open up for a couple. We'd like to talk about, obviously, some of the things we're doing, because a lot of this is new, and we know you'll have some questions about that. But we'd also like to be able to discuss your ideas. If you have some suggestions for Deutsche Börse, it's not, I know, the most popular investment entity. It has some interesting stories to tell about successful entrepreneurship. And of course, we love technology and embrace it and hope to use it to extend the footprint of the company. So Eric is here somewhere, or okay, microphone. So does anyone have a question to start off with? Just one.
Hello. Hi. So it's Jörg from Deutsche Bank. Maybe a challenging question at the beginning. Where do you see the business value of Deutsche Börse in the future if, with a distributed ledger, seller and buyer can be connected directly without that kind of middleman?
The technologist is passing the mic to the venture capitalist. That's great.
This was the first and last question, because the answer will be intense.
Well, I'll try and be brief over here. So obviously I mentioned that we've already partnered up with digital asset holdings, which, or rather invested in digital asset holdings. So clearly it's a technology that we believe has relevance. Now, I don't want to oversell that word relevance, because where that technology actually evolves and how the popular theory is that blockchain and distributed ledger is basically going to completely transform the entire market infrastructure organization and the banking ecosystem as it exists today. I'm not there. I'm not there, right? And I'm not there for several reasons, because there are several hurdles that distributed ledger as a technology or blockchain as a technology still needs to circumvent and get over the hump on. Number one is, and I'll name 2 or 3 of these. Number one is building enterprise-wide application stacks, which hasn't really happened. Yes, we've seen good proof points within sort of Bitcoin or associated sort of payment sort of networks, which is valid, and that's being stress tested in a number of banks as well. Number 2 is confidentiality. The trade-off between confidentiality and transparency, which within the capital markets and the banking domain is very, very relevant. Number 3 is how the governance model is potentially going to work from that perspective. Number 4 is scalability. So yes, we know that theoretically there's a lot of elasticity within that. It requires a massive amount of computing power as well, but all these hurdles still need to be crossed. That said, there are very obvious places where we see some relevance of the technology already, and that's why we basically made an initial investment in perhaps what we deem to be one of the leading capital markets application sort of developers based on this technology. But that's not it, right? Because we have our own internal blockchain development team that is testing out internal use cases that we are building internally within the organization. We are doing it in partnership with other industry bodies as well. We are a member of the Hyperledger Foundation, and we are one of the early members over there. So we are doing things with the broader community, so it's a multi-pronged approach. But to say that it's going to take over market infrastructure and the banking ecosystem in the next year or two, I don't see that happen.
Thank you.
I think probably relevant is what I would say that what's just beginning is sort of a second wave of fintech companies now where you see the larger incumbent companies creating much more of a digital platform and their business becomes easier to integrate with, but you still need a highly scalable, very performant infrastructure, and it needs to be global and all IP to do banking today or even any type of larger scale transaction processing. So I would say somewhere between in-memory computing, high-performance cloud, somewhere this technology will find a home. But I think it's probably going to be and look much different in a couple of years than it looked around Bitcoin. Yeah. So
from my
next
side,
question.
Martin,
yeah.
Are you happy?
Yeah.
Martin Setzer, LBBW. An easy question so that you stay a little while with us. Just simply, could you give a bit more background on that slide here? I would like to understand a bit more in depth how this innovation and venture ecosystem works, as you show it here as a connected circle, from the venture network to the technology lab, digital business unit, and Fintech Hub. If you could be a bit more explicit on this one.
Okay, I'll take a stab at that. First of all, it's not all worked out yet. So keep in mind I'm in charge of innovation, so I'll do my best, right? So the idea is we want to have a number of different, let's call it vectors into the market, obviously because of the audience and because of the different stakeholders. We have, and we talked about this venture network. Venture network you can think of as a meeting place for investors and sort of later stage growth companies. Could change in the future. It could also involve a number of different activities related to investor interest or bringing companies into the IPO or near IPO phase. So think of that as a grown-up angel type of meeting place. By the way, I think the numbers are very impressive. It started off as an idea and it's already become a very important part of it. The Dbg Technology Lab is designed to help two things, or two audiences. One is internal product developers that have an interest in applying new technologies to some of the work they're doing. We have some super sophisticated products, but we also have a number of products that are very, let's say, that have a very limited audience and a very focused technology stack. And some of those we want to expand into near or other market segments altogether. Think about marketplaces for other kinds of consumer goods, for advertising, etc. So that's the internal and external. We have a number of companies that come along and want to, I'm a robo fund and I want to get data, I want to get index data, I want to get that over REST APIs and so on. So bringing that together with external companies that need a way to work together with Deutsche Börse on a digital platform. The digital business unit is a dedicated group of people that is designed around building, mobilizing some of the applications that we have and building new digital go-to-market opportunities. It goes from building websites to performance marketing to actually building out apps and helping our product managers go to market with them. The Fintech Hub is really a place that's a co-location place that Deutsche Börse recently started. It's designed to reach out to companies that are startups or affiliates or, let's say, branches of companies that want to work closer with the Frankfurt FinTech community, especially Deutsche Börse, but also other companies as well. And this Fintech Hub, we have plans to expand that into other geographic areas as well. Think about Berlin or London, Singapore, etc., where we have an equal amount of interest in companies wanting to co-locate and work together with Deutsche Börse. And DB1 Ventures, we just explained, is a venture capital investing company. So we don't have a grandiose process model for all of that, but we have the people on stage. We have, of course, regular meetings. You find companies coming to us in these different vectors, and what we try to do is pool our resources, pool our talent, and help companies create the best possible value for them and for us in working to each other.
And I think also to add to this, it's also a cultural thing. I mean, to create a culture where things can be explored, fail, succeed, disruptive technologies, ideas are circulated within the core of the employmentship, within the management. And I think with this, we create a completely different openness and affinity to new technologies, to new ideas and business concept in different stages of the life cycle. And I think that's very important because otherwise you end up like other organizations that defend their ground for 25 years, and by a sudden they're sitting in front of a big change in the landscape, and because you are not able to adjust and to disrupt yourself, it's difficult then to change the whole model, and you might have to found a completely new company in order to get something off the ground. We're in the fortunate position that out of 2.8 billion in revenues, we generate, I don't know, 2.5 electronically or more already. So technology is part of our DNA, but there are later technologies out there like blockchain, and we have to keep in touch. And some things we can do internally, but many good ideas come from externally, and we have to, first of all, know them, second of all, use them, and third of all, catalyze them, no matter where they come from, internally from the laboratory or externally from other good corners. And I think that will, and is already, making a big change in our adaptation and perception of new technology, new business models. And I think I'm the best example that this company is not ignorant of, if there's somebody is successful, to embrace it, embed it, and to scale it further as part of the company. I think that's an important point.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Okay. We had one entrepreneur sitting over here, I think, somewhere. Raise your hand. Would you mind just explaining what you would like to see from Deutsche Börse as an entrepreneur?
From Deutsche Börse as an entrepreneur. We are quite an early stage startup, but we deal with, we're B2B obviously, in, as everybody can be in this space. So you deal with asset managers, you deal with financial institutions, and to deal with them, you need not just the financial backing, but also the credibility. You need the kind of a boost of trust, a boost of faith that you're going to be around. And I think I'm not sure as to the criteria that Deutsche Börse works with which companies at, you know, your new ecosystem involves only high growth companies, as you mentioned. But for early stage startups in capital markets, partnership with a credible player is incredibly important. Not necessarily maybe the cash infusion, but just a partnership level, and that basically gives you a level of trust that gives a leap to your product, and you can work with large institutions that runs billions and billions. So this is one thing that I would mention, that maybe not just venture capital, but a partnership type level that allows a startup to get that credibility boost is a huge asset, just aside from the hard cash.
I think that's an incredibly important point, right? And just to pass another sort of layer of the venture investing sort of philosophy that Deutsche Börse has, it is a strategic corporate venture arm, which basically means that we lead with the sort of strategic sort of thought process and the strategic question. How can we actually help the partner actually also grow? Right? So apart from, there are a lot of capital providers, but the benefit of actually coming to a corporate VC like ourselves is that we actually offer connectivity from a business use case and testing it out in the real market perspective. Now, just to be clear, so DB1 Ventures, by bias, we are biased towards growth investments. That's what DB1 Ventures philosophy is. It's biased towards growth investments because by virtue of having a scaled or a proven business model, we can actually help you accelerate and grow that much faster by providing that client connectivity or infrastructure connectivity, technology or operational skills. However, we do actually have a partner firm sitting out of London called Illuminate. And Illuminate does very early stage venture investing within the capital markets infrastructure space. And obviously with the combination of the Fintech Hub, that was a question that was asked how it all connects, the Fintech Hub or the DBVN, the Deutsche Börse Venture Network, it allows us to bring all parts of that ecosystem together. So fully agree with you, unless there is a strategic rationale, capital is available from plenty.
So I think we have time for one more question. If anyone has a question about, yeah, one more right here. Better be good, it's the last question.
Could you tell us a bit more about your plans, like from number-wise, how many startups or projects are you going to plan to lead through some parts of this cycle or all parts of this cycle? Like, for example, how many startups are you planning to invest in with your DB1 Ventures arm, or how many startup projects are you going to be planning to pull through your Fintech Hub in Frankfurt? Like, for example, what are your plans on the end of this year, number-wise?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not just by coincidence. I mean, there's not, let's say, a grand scheme where you have to be in any one of these things to work with us, by the way. But the idea is that we have a number of different venues for different types of companies and people to participate. Speaking as the technology guy here, I would say, you know, I would want to interact with companies that have a real interest in creating a transaction type of ecosystem within Deutsche Börse and need to have a guide or some guidance and some platform to integrate their product. Whether Ankur is investing in them or whether Carlo, you know, grew up with them, that's not too super important, but it's relevant when we can combine the things into some type of synergistic venue for us.
I think the other part of your question was around some of the specific numbers. What I can actually tell you is the specific numbers that exist, obviously, today to a certain extent, right? Obviously, Fintech Hub, may have said it in my preamble, but we already have 4. Someone will hit me on the head and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that we have got 4 startups already who are actually co-located with us. We've got over 30 or close to 30 to 40 employees who are actually, so we actually also co-house part of our DB Venture Network within our Fintech Hub to provide that sort of ecosystem partnership over there. DB1 Ventures, we have a big legacy portfolio already, and what we invest in the future, to a certain extent, this is still balance sheet capital, which means that we are still investing Deutsche Börse money. I'm not going out and investing third-party LP money, which means that should we have the right investment opportunities, we will actually be able to deploy that capital. I don't have a bogey on my head from either Carlo or Thomas as part of the IC or by our exco saying, you have to deploy money in at least 4 ventures every year. And by the way, by year 3, if you haven't spent X amount of money, I'm taking it out of you. No, so that bias to be forced to deploy capital, which I have been part of as well. I come from the buy side as well and have sat where there is a deep bias, invest. That doesn't exist, right? And then finally, with respect to DB Venture Network, we've got 155 investors and 80 corporates already onboarded onto that platform.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much. I hope that answered your question. Thank you for participating in the workshop. It was good to have some feedback and some questions. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you, Ankur. And we are now holding up the startups, so we want to get out of their way and off the stage. Yeah.